Okay, I again welcome you to this video class. In this video class, I'm going to discuss with you the Union Budget 23-24. Since the budget is a technical document, and maybe that most of you may not be knowing about the nuances of the budget. And therefore, I have divided this budget, these classes on the unit budget in 2 or 3 categories. In the first class, I will discuss with you the theoretical aspect of the budgeting. In the second part, I will discuss with you the components of the union budget in India. Means when we say the budget is presented, what actually is presented in the parliament, that I will discuss in the second part. In the third part, I will discuss with you the salient features of Union Budget 23-24, and then we will see that how far the Union Budget 23-24 has taken into account the advice given by the Economic Survey of 22-23 presented in the Parliament a day before the budget. Now, coming to the concept of the budget, the important part here is that when we say the budget is, what does it signify? Budget signifies that this is the fiscal policy of the government. We know that among the macroeconomic policies, fiscal policy is the most important. And fiscal policy of the government is reflected through the budget. If you want to understand the fiscal policy of the government, then you have to understand the budget. And therefore, when we talk the fiscal policy of the government, we talk about determining the level and composition of the expenditure. We have to see the resource mobilization. We have to see the deficit containment in the budget. If deficit is there, how we are going to contain it. And we are also determining the size of the debt of the government. And therefore, the fiscal policy is concerned with these 4 aspects. And all these 4 aspects are concerned with the budget, are concerned with the budget of the government. When we look at the budget, we always look at these 4 components. The major function of the fiscal policy, which is accomplished by the government through budget, is obviously the allocation, distribution, stabilization and development. Every government, when they present the budget, they allocate the resources under various heads. First, the total size of the budget they decide, and when the total size of the budget is decided, how this total amount is distributed among various sectors, it has to be decided. And in making the decision about the sectoral distribution of the budget, the government has to ensure that the macroeconomic stability is maintained. Macroeconomic stability is maintained. And second aspect, the government has to ensure that the allocation of the resources in the budget should always lead to development. And therefore, the stability and development, these are the 2 cornerstones of every country's budget. When budget is presented, they ensure that it leads to economic stability in the country. It also leads to development in the country. But in case of the developing countries, like India, we are still developing country, the additional responsibility of the fiscal policy lies in the resource mobilization, because the level of per capita income is not so high of the people, and therefore the savings rate are low, and therefore it is the responsibility of the government to mobilize the resources for the development purpose. And it is also responsibility of the government to ensure that whatever private sector is doing, it is towards the attainment of the socially determined goals, that is, the goals set by the government or parliament of the country. And we have to ensure that, and that also ensured through the budget. We also have to ensure that the regional balance is maintained, because in these countries all the regions are not equally developed, and therefore the government has to ensure that some part of the capital expenditure through the budget should also go to the backward regions, so that they also start developing. And therefore the balanced regional development is one of the aspect of the budget in developing countries. The another aspect of the budget in developing country is that they have to ensure that after the budget is presented, at least inequality in the distribution of income wealth do not rise. Inequality in the distribution of income and wealth do not rise, and therefore they have to maintain the balanced regional development. They also have to ensure the equitable distribution of income and wealth. They also have to ensure resource mobilization. They also have to ensure that private sector actions are in consonance with the socially determined goals, that is, the goals set by the government. And this is the basic function of the fiscal policy in the developing countries, and this function is attained by the government through the budget. Therefore, whenever the budget is presented in the parliament, it satisfies all these important areas. The budget, if you look at this diagram, union budget is presented, and union budget will present the operational content of the government policies. Whatever the policy government has made, unless they have support some financial resources, that policy has no meaning in development process. And therefore the resources will be allocated to the government policies, government programs only through the budget. And therefore when the budget is presented, it indicates the operational content of the government policies. Government may make policies, but these policies will be operationalized only through the budget, Unless the budget is presented, the policies will not be operationalized. The policy will remain only in the paper. The budget is annual revenue and expenditure statement of the government. The Constitution, if you look at the Constitution itself says, Constitution doesn't use the term budget. They only says that annual financial statement has to be laid in the parliament every year by the government under Article 112. And therefore it is a statement of the annual expenditure and revenue of the government. As I said, that the annual revenue and expenditure of the government has to be done in such a way that it should ensure the macroeconomic stability in the system. If budget is presented in such a way that macroeconomic stability is disturbed, then obviously budget is not liked by the people. Suppose if fiscal deficit is more than 10%, then obviously it is going to impact the inflation in the economy, it is going to impact the rate of interest in the economy, it is going to impact the exchange rate in the economy. And therefore, if all these three rates are affected, the country will experience the macroeconomic instability. And therefore, when the budget is presented, it is ensured that the economic stability in the country is not disturbed. Similarly, as I said that the budget is coordinating the action plan of the public sector as well as private sector, because ours is a mixed economy model. We have allowed private sector also to function along with the government, and therefore government has to ensure that there is a perfect coordination between public and private sector, and that is the channel, or that is the route through which government ensure this kind of coordination. So therefore, this is the budget role, and will indicate the policy of the government, fiscal policy of the government. As I said that the budget is always taken as a fiscal tool. Budget is a fiscal tool of the government, which, when we say fiscal tool, we are concerned with the annual revenue and annual expenditure of the government. Government has to align its expenditure with revenue such that the macroeconomic balance or macroeconomic stability is maintained. That is the first basic principle of the budget making. No government would like that the macroeconomic stability of the country is disturbed. That's why the budget as a fiscal tool has to ensure the economic stability. Budget as a accounting tool has to ensure that whatever expenditure is done by the government, it has resulted into the expected outcome. It has resulted into an expected outcome. And to ensure that the expected outcome is attained by the government expenditure, in case of India, we also started presenting an outcome budget in the parliament. I'll mention this when we'll go to the budget documents. And this outcome budget will indicate the expected outcome from the government expenditure made under various programs and schemes of the government. Is a very important planning tool, because as you know that always resources are constrained. We don't have the adequate resources, but our requirement is enormous. Therefore, the government has to make a planning which is the priority area, which is our priority area. And therefore, while making the allocation of funds under various heads or to various sectors, the government priority is reflected. The government priority has become very, very important. Government priority has become very, very important, and therefore budget will reflect the government priority. Suppose this year budget is making the highest allocation for railways. Suppose out of capital expenditure, the government is making the highest allocation for railways and highways. The government priority for developing the adequate infrastructure is reflected through the budget. And that's why it is always used as a planning tool. It is also used as a planning tool. Similarly, the policy coherence and coordination. Three kinds of coordination government has to maintain. One is the internal coordination, because the government is being run through the ministries. And in Government of India, we have almost 100 departments. And therefore, all the 100 departments are allocated the funds. They place their demand to the Ministry of Finance. And Ministry of Finance, given the resource constraint, they allocate the funds to various departments. And therefore, the first coordination has to be maintained between the departments. And the first is internal coordination. Second coordination is between public and private sector, as I said, because ours is a mixed economy model, and we have to ensure that private sector work in tandem with the public sector, and all efforts of the private sector are directed towards attainment of social goals or the goals set by the government. And third coordination government has to maintain with the international economy. And therefore, keeping in view the international developments, the adequate measures are taken through budget to address the international situation in the country. And therefore, all these three kinds of coordination are maintained through the budget. Now, given this system, given this the importance of the budget, the next part is obviously, as I mentioned this, I already mentioned that budget as a fiscal tool is very, very important, and therefore the union budget for 23-24, we are coming directly for the union budget 23-24. But before I come to union budget 23-24, I hope I should explain to you the various components of the budget documents which we place in the parliament, and therefore these are the documents which comprises the budget. When budget is presented in the parliament, then what does it mean? You know that the finance minister's speech, which the finance minister reads in the parliament, it comprises of two parts, part A and part B. Part A will obviously reflect the government policy initiatives, programs and schemes. All are reflected in part A. Part B will give you the taxation proposals of the government. And along with the FM's speech, the following documents are placed in the parliament. For example, annual financial statement, as I said, is placed in the parliament under Article 112. And this is essentially the budget. The demand for grants is presented in the parliament under Article 113. As I said that we have hundreds of departments or ministries in the government, and therefore each ministry plays their requirement of funds to the Ministry of Finance. And therefore each department and ministry is given a demand number, and therefore the allocation made to them is recorded under that demand number. And therefore under the demand number, the headwise allocation given to them is recorded. And this is given in the demand for grants. Demand for grants. If you look at the document in the form of this diagram, is very easy to understand. So as I said that the documents placed along with the FM's speech can be classified under four categories. Can be classified under four categories. One category is the document as mandated by the Constitution of India. These four documents, annual financial statements, demand for grants, and appropriation bill and finance bill. These four documents have to be placed as a component of the budget. And these are mandated by the Constitution of India under different articles. And these are the four important documents. No budget can be presented without these four documents. Then we also present, to simplify the data of expenditure and revenue, we present separately the expenditure budget and revenue budget. Expenditure budget is placed in two documents. One is called expenditure profile and other is called expenditure budget. Expenditure profile gives you the overall allocation of funds by the government under various heads. If you really want to see suppose you want to see how much allocation is made by the government for the empowerment of the women, total allocation made, then you can find that statement in expenditure profile. Expenditure profile will give you a consolidated statement and will indicate all the programs relating to women implemented by various ministries. They are summarized at one place, and it will provide you the total allocation of funds scheme wise for given for women empowerment. Suppose you want to see the government schemes and programs and the total allocation made for the improvement of the situation of scheduled caste or scheduled tribe or children. So you will find the individual statements in this expenditure profile. The expenditure profile is very, very important document. If you really want to see the government expenditure under a particular head or for a particular purpose, you can find out in expenditure profile. After the railway budget and the union budget is merged together from 1718 onwards, the government has presented the allocation to railways also in the expenditure profile. They are also referred to in the expenditure profile. If you want to see that in a particular year how much money is transferred by the government to states or down to the local bodies, that can also be found in the expenditure profile. The expenditure profile is a very, very important document, and as a student of economics, one should go through it, one should read it. As and when required, one should read it. And second is expenditure budget. That is not required to be read by anyone, because expenditure budget is ministry-wise allocation of funds. Ministry-wise, scheme-wise allocation of funds. It is a huge pink color document and is 300-400 pages, giving you the ministry-wise, department-wise, or major head or minor head-wise allocation of funds. That is not required by you. That is required by those who are working in the government or in a particular ministry. They will have to keep it. Now, the last receipt budget, that will give you the record of the government revenue, and both in the form of the tax revenue. Tax revenue is for the breakup, direct taxes, indirect taxes, and non-tax revenue. All these are recorded, will be given in this receipt budget. So these are the document which will give you the simpler or simplified analysis of government expenditure and the receipts. These documents are mandated documents, and therefore these have to be placed in the parliament. Now in this, these four documents are to be placed in the parliament as per the requirement of the FRBM. As you know that FRBM Act was enacted by the government in 2003. And when this FRBM Act is enacted, the FRBM mandated that along with the budget, the first three documents are required to be placed. Initially, the first three documents were supposed to be placed in the parliament, the first three, this one and this one. And these three documents are very, very important. For example, the this is MEF, macroeconomic framework statement. This macroeconomic framework statement gives the government projection, as I said, that is made in the survey, government projection for various macroeconomic variables for the budget year. What are the government projections about GDP, and based on the GDP about the tax GDP ratio or CAD GDP ratio or fiscal deficit. All these projections are made under the macroeconomic statement. This is a macroeconomic framework statement. This is essentially prepared based on the input given by the survey. Macroeconomic framework statement. The second important document is medium-term fiscal policy statement. Medium-term fiscal policy statement. This statement gives the very, very important information. So as a student of economics or those who are preparing for CSE, they have to look at these two statements, certainly. Macroeconomic framework statement and the medium-term fiscal policy statement. Medium-term fiscal policy statement give you the data of the 4 years in one table. That is the the year for which the budget is presented, the data is given to you. That is called budget estimates. For last year, that is 22-23, we'll give you revised estimates of the last year. Because actual expenditure will come only when the CAG audit the government accounts. That takes the 1 year period. Therefore, the actual expenditure come only after 1 year. But we will present the revised estimate of the last year. That is 22-23 revised estimate, 23-24 budget estimates. And we also make the projection for next 2 years. Next 2 years, that is 24-25 and 25-26. So, for example, we give you fiscal deficit ratio. Suppose we give the fiscal deficit GDP ratio, so we'll give you revised estimate for 22-23. We'll give the budget estimate for 23-24. And then we'll make the projection for fiscal deficit for 2024-25 and 25-26. So similarly, in case of the other variables also, like the revenue deficit, we will give the 4 years data. The outstanding liabilities will give the 4 years data. The other important macro variables like the external balance will give the 4 years data as a percentage of GDP. And GDP we will take as mentioned in the MEF statement. Because GDP we are using the current year, that is 23-24. The 23-24 GDP is available to us only through macroeconomic framework statement. Therefore, the macroeconomic framework statement gives you the I-word of the India's economy and the projection of the GDP, and that is very, very important. That is used in medium-term fiscal policy statement. And that's why these two statements are very, very important. The fiscal policy strategy statement is for the year for which budget is presented. Is for the year for which budget is presented. If budget is presented for 2023-24, then the fiscal policy strategy statement give you the how the government is going to mobilize the resources in terms of the tax revenue or in terms of non-tax revenue, that will be given in the fiscal policy strategy statement. The fiscal policy strategy statement will give you the government fiscal policy for the current year. Medium-term fiscal policy statement will give you the government's medium-term government's fiscal policy not only for the current year but for the next immediate 2 years also. You will be having the estimated or expected fiscal policy of the government, which is going to be in the next 2 years. Then the last statement is added only after 2011-12 onwards, a medium-term expenditure framework statement. This is the statement which is, of course, part of the budget document, but placed in the parliament, not in the budget session, but in the subsequent session, that is monsoon session, because expenditure statement is not available at the time of preparation of the budget, because budget is presented in midway of the year, and the statement requires to present the government expenditure for the whole year. And therefore, once the expenditure statement is available for the whole year, then this medium-term expenditure framework statement is presented in the parliament in the monsoon session. And therefore, these 4 documents are really very, very important and as prescribed by the FRBM. This is, one should read. It's a very, very small document, 10 pages, 12 pages statement is there. So if you are preparing for CSE examination, particularly for prelim or mains, one has to go through these statements. Now, these are the statements which are prepared essentially for the budget at glance or the highlights. These are prepared for the press purpose, the summary of the budget, because budget being a technical document is normally not understood by the people. and therefore it is more simplified, and for the public use, for the press use, these two documents are presented. Now, memorandum of explaining the bill provisions, because these two bills which are presented in the Parliament, appropriation bill and financial bill, these two bills are technical bill, legal bill, prepared in the legal language, and therefore to make the members of Parliament understand this language, their various provisions are explained under this document, the memorandum explaining the bill provisions. Some of the important provisions of these bills are explained in simple language in this statement. This is essentially for the members of Parliament who can read them, understand the provisions of the bill before voting for approval of the budget. Then this is the document which I mentioning earlier is very important document today, outcome budget. Outcome budget. As I said, it was not presented in the Parliament earlier, and therefore the practice of presenting the outcome budget started from 2006-07 onwards. 2006-07 onwards, and from 2006-07 onwards, the government decided that every penny spent by the government has to have the outcome, has to have some explanation from where that money has gone. And that's why the outcome budget is presented. Outcome budget presents essentially the relationship between the outlay and outcome. Outlay is the expenditure of the government, and corresponding to the outlay, what has been or what is likely to be the outcome of the government, outcome of the in the economy. Therefore, that has to be highlighted. No expenditure can be made by the government if it has no outcome, and therefore the outcome has to be established. Outlay outcome relationship has to be established, and that is done in this outcome budget. Outcome budget essentially a summary of the government programs and schemes involving the budget of 500 crores and above, and these schemes are presented ministry-wise in this document. Suppose the Manrega is there, then we will write that under Manrega we have allocated say 60,000 crores, and this is the outlay. Outcome is suppose so many million man days to be created, or so many assets, valuing so much assets will be generated. The target may be set by the government in any form, and this target is known to the parliamentary or member of parliament before the execution starts on Manrega. Therefore, at the end of the year, government will see that whatever outcome is indicated in the outcome budget is actually attained or not. And therefore, in this outcome budget we will give the last year figure. Last year it was the outlay. This is the outcome. If there is a deviation, last year outcome is more or outcome is less as expected, government gives the justification. And the current year government say outlay will be this much, and this is likely to be outcome. Therefore, the outlay outcome budget, or outcome budget we may call it shortly, is a very important document. It's a very important document, and therefore this also explains how far the government is able to make the expenditure on the meaningful schemes and programs. How far government has been able to spend on social welfare activities. How much government has been able to spend on the education, health, or any other facility. You want to see all schemes are summarized in this outcome budget document. This is a very important document. It has become now, and therefore it has to be looked at. These are the documents which are placed in the parliament along the FM speech, and therefore these are called the budget document. When we say union budget, then all these documents are placed in a bag in the parliament, and this is called the union budget, FM speech plus the following documents. As I mentioned, these are the 4 category of documents which are placed in the parliament. Now, here the important here is these 2 bills, appropriation bill and the finance bill. The sequence here is, when the budget is presented, the government has to first approve the demand for grants. Government has to approve first the demand for grants, and once the demand for grants are once approved, only thereafter the appropriation bill or finance bill are presented. Of course, they are presented along with the budget, but the finance minister has to say that the appropriation bill is now to be considered by the parliament. Now the question is how the demand for grants has to be approved first. So as you say that, you see normally the process here is like this. The budget is presented in the parliament and a short discussion held on the budget, initial short discussion. And thereafter the parliament goes on recess. Recess is that no parliament session is held, but during the recess period, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the standing committees start functioning. The government, the speaker set up the standing committee for each ministry, or one standing committee may look after 2-3 ministries. Then in the recess period, the standing committees will examine each ministry's budget in detail. They will examine each ministry's budget in detail, and then they present their recommendation to the speaker. Because in the budget, the ministry's summary is given in the demand for grants. Ministry also prepare their detailed demand for grants. Ministry also prepare for detailed demand for grants. These are demand for grants, and ministry also prepare the detailed demand for grants. The detailed demand for grants are giving the ministry expenditure up to the lowest level, and these are examined by the standing committees. And standing committees, after having a discussion on the particular ministry's detailed demand for grants, give their recommendation to the speaker. Yes, their outlay as proposed may be approved. And therefore, when the recess is over, the speaker has the recommendation of all the standing committees. Therefore, when the budget is to be approved, then the members of parliament has to consider the recommendation of the standing committees and give their vote on the standing committees' recommendations. Once they are approved, demand for grants is approved. And demand for grants summary is presented in this document, demand for grants. The demand for grants is a very, very important document. Once it is approved, then the government has to seek the authorization from the parliament to make the expenditure as approved by the parliament in the demand for grants. Therefore, the demand for grants is to be approved by the parliament first. And after the demand for grants are approved, then the finance minister, while presenting the appropriation bill, seek the authorization of the parliament to approve the bill, so that government can withdraw the money from the consolidated fund of India to make the expenditure as approved by the parliament in the demand for grants. This is the statement the finance minister made, and the appropriation bill is passed. Once appropriation bill become appropriation act, then only then government can withdraw even a single rupee from consolidated fund of India. So therefore, government cannot withdraw a money from the consolidated fund of India unless the appropriation bill is approved. Unless the appropriation bill is become the appropriation act. This is very, very important to understand. And therefore, the government can withdraw the money from CFI only to meet the expenditure as approved by the parliament contained in the demand for grants. That this is the relevance of these documents. It is the sequencing you have to understood. Sometimes question comes on this only. And therefore, the last is the finance bill. Because the government has to mobilize the resources to meet the expenditure. And therefore, the government put forward the taxation proposals in the finance bill, which is the part B of the speech of the FM. And therefore, the finance bill will contain the provisions to lay the new taxes or modify the existing tax rates as mentioned by the FM's speech. And therefore, the finance bill will be approved. Once finance bill become finance act, only then can government can impose any new tax or can mobilize resources based on the original tax once the finance bill is become the finance act. Therefore, from 1st April onwards, government cannot raise any revenue from you unless the finance bill is approved by the parliament and it becomes the finance act as on 31st March. That's why you will see that always the government always approves the finance bill before the 31st March. If not, then the vote and account budget is presented separately to make the expenditure or raise the revenue for the 2 months. That was done earlier when the budget was presented in the end of February. Because when the budget is presented at the end of February, it was not possible to approve the budget before 31st March. And that's why for April and May, the budget also approve the vote on account for the government, so that government can temporarily make the expenditure as approved by the parliament on vote on account. The vote on account is required when budget is not approved by the parliament. That to ease that situation, to correct that situation, we preponed the presentation of the budget in the parliament. Now the budget is presented on the 1st February, so that we have a full 2 months, February and March, to approve the budget before 31st. And this is what is happening for the last many years, that budget is approved finally before 31st, so that no vote on account is required. No vote on account is required. Therefore, vote on account is a temporary phenomenon where the parliament gives you some temporary approval to make the expenditure for 2 months. So that situation is not there these days, and therefore these are the 4 documents, and 3 documents, these are the 7, 10 and 14. 14 document plus FM speech is normally form the union budget. That is first to understand, this is fact, this is the component of the budget. So I hope I have explained to you the significance of the budget, relevance of the budget, and the various components of the budget. When we say budget is presented, what do we mean by the budget is presented? We present the budget in the following forms. If it is clear to you, then in the next class, I'll give you details of the budget of the current year, that is 23-24. Budget for the current year. The budget in the current year 23-24 is the first budget which is presented in the Amrit Kal. Therefore, you need to understand the nuances of this budget. In this budget is presented first budget for Amrit Kal. Government has announced Amrit Kal for the next 25 years. Next 25 years. We have already attained 75 years of independence, and whatever we have attained in 75 years, we have to celebrate it first. We have to celebrate it. We have to take the pride in our achievement in 75 years. Now the government has laid the target, what we are going to achieve in the next 5 years, what we are going to achieve in the next 5 years, and therefore next 25 years. And that is the next 25 years, that is when India will be of 100 years of age after independence, what India will look like. That perception is made by the present government, and they call it next 25 years is a Amrit Kal. The Amrit Kal is the period they defined for the next 25 years. So what is Amrit Kal? Amrit Kal is basically a Sanskrit word, Amrit Kal. And Amrit is a kind of liquid we see in our mythology, is Amrit, and the person who drinks the Amrit becomes the immortal, that nobody can kill him. So the person has become immortal, Amrit. And therefore here Kal is a period. Therefore they are not saying immortality, their meaning is that in Amrit Kal we will create a situation such that every person can utilize his potential to the maximum extent possible. That is the Amrit Kal defined. They said that Amrit Kal is a term describing the critical time slot. Critical time slot is 25 years. Is available to all for achieving their highest human potential. It means in next 25 years, we shall try to exploit, or we shall try to use each sections or each person's maximum potential. And therefore, this period they call is Amrit Kal. Therefore, they will put in place the policies and the programs such that everyone will get the opportunity. Every section of the society will get an opportunity to show their maximum potential, to show their maximum strength, to attain the maximum out of their potential. And this is how they defined it. This is how they defined it, Amrit Kal. And Amrit Kal starts from this year's budget. Of course, Amrit Kal has already started, but they say that 23-24 is going to be the first budget of the Amrit Kal. And in 2046, we shall be the 100 years of age, and what India would look like to be at the age of 100 is to be perceived now, and we have to make efforts to attain that perception. The government perceives that by 2046-47, we shall be of the India's, we shall be world's important economy. Our size will be $26 trillion. This is what we are expecting. Today we are $3 trillion, and we are expecting it to be $26 trillion by 2046-47. And we will showcase to the world our strength, our specialties, so that the people start believing in the strength of India. This is what we perceive India would be after the 25 years from now. And that's why they decide that every person, particularly when the Prime Minister gave the speech, he emphasizes on youth. He emphasized on youth, that the youth of the country should give their next 25 years to the country. They should use their potential to make this country a most advanced country in the in the rest of the world, so that the people start looking towards India for seeking advice on various issues at the international level. That is the kind of perception the government has made about India for the next 25 years. And this period is termed as the Amrit Kal. The Amrit Kal is defined for next 25 years, and this is what we are expecting to present. Now, the first time this term Amrit Kal was used by the Prime Minister in his Independence Day speech in 21. In 21, we made this, he used this term. And therefore, he said that the next 75 weeks, since then, we will celebrate the Amrit Kal Ka Mahotsav. We will celebrate it because 23-24 is going to be the first budget of the Amrit Kal. And we have almost 75 weeks to celebrate our achievement we have attained so far at the age of 75 years. We have to showcase our achievement for the last 75 years. And we also create the generation or awareness generation among the people what we are going to do in the next 25 years. And once the people become aware of that, and then we will make the Amrit Kal announcement, and that is made through this budget. And therefore, before this budget is presented, the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is being celebrated for 75 weeks. And these 75 weeks will be culminated on the August 15, 23. And therefore, till August 23, we have to celebrate this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, during which the focus in this period will be that the following things he said, focus and generate the awareness among the people. For example, the freedom struggle. We should take pride in the freedom struggle we have made to become independent. And during this 75 weeks, he wants that the people in the groups or institutions or the other organizations should highlight the role of various freedom fighters in the struggle of independence. They should highlight the role. And therefore, he said that this is the first celebration we have to make. And in this, you see that the Netaji's statue has been laid nearby the India Gate. And therefore, this is the first point highlighted, that in the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav for 75 weeks, we should highlight the roles of various freedom fighters. If some of the freedom fighters are not known to the people, if somebody knows them, their role has to be highlighted. This is the first. The second is the resolve at 75. Resolve at 75. What we have achieved till the age of 75, that we have to resolve. It means we have to show that in 75 years of age, we have to celebrate our Constitution Day, we have to celebrate Good Governance Week, we have to, whatever we have achieved, we have to showcase to the public in the various forms. And therefore, the idea that 75, what we have attained in the age of 75, and that has to be celebrated, and known to the public. And therefore, we have to spotlight the programs and events inspired by the ideas and ideals that have shaped the India so far. And that has to be celebrated. And in this, for example, the Kashi Utsav or the postcards to PM, the various programs have been organized to showcase our achievement at the age of 75. What actions at 75? This focus will highlight what actions are being undertaken by the government at the age of 75, and this government is trying to focus that you have to use the motto that Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Prayas. This is the motto the government has followed, and they want it to be propagated under this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The last thing is achievements. What we have achieved so far, that has to be celebrated. That has to be pride taken off by us. And the various events to be organized to propagate the major achievements of India at the age of 75. And therefore, it was highlighted that before we start the Amrit Kal, the adequate generation, adequate awareness has to be generated among the people what we are going to do in the next 25 years. This is the purpose of this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And that's why it is clearly mentioned what needs to be done. The certain theme areas have been identified which will be used in generating the awareness among the people of the last 75 years attainment. For example, women and children, tribal empowerment, water, cultural pride, lifestyle for environment, health and wellness, inclusive development, the Atmanirbhar Bharat and unity. These are the areas on which the celebrations has to be made in 75 weeks. That is the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And this, as I said, this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is going to be culminated at the 15th August 2023. And at that, the Prime Minister hopefully in his speech will make a mention of it. Now the other campaign which is celebrated during this period is Har Ghar Tiranga. And you see that you will find that in most of the areas, we'll finding our Tiranga is flying, is flowing, is blowing. And that's why the Har Ghar Tiranga is to be provided under this Amrit Ka Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. In this is one of the campaign. This is one of the campaign. So therefore, we have identified what is to be done in 75 weeks, which will be culminated on 15th of August 2023. And 23-24 is the first year of this Amrit Kal. Amrit Kal is defined till the 2046 and 47. And this 2046, we have make a perception about the India's economy. We have estimated the size of India's economy, and that size of India's economy need to be attained. And for that, what need to be done is beginning is made by this first budget of Amrit Kal, that is the Union Budget for 23-24. 23-24. Is it clear? If it is clear to you, then we will move on to the actual content of the budget. Actual content of the budget. Actual content of the budget, we shall move. This I have already done. And therefore, the actual content of the budget will be presented to you in this. When this budget is presented by the government, they have made certain vision about the future. This is the first budget of the Amrit Kal, as I said, and therefore vision for Amrit Kal is made by the government. And in this next 25 years, this is the vision. The government has three vision. That is opportunities for citizens with focus on the youth. As I said that Amrit Kal is defined for providing the opportunity to all the citizens of the country, particularly to the youth, to utilize their potential to the maximum possible extent. And that potential to be utilized for the development of the country, or making the country a pride in the international front. That's why the opportunities for citizens is the focus on the youth. Second is growth and job creation. The second vision is we cannot have a growth without creation of the job. If any growth which is without the job creation will not be acceptable. The growth has to be accompanied with the creation of the jobs. And the third is the strong and stable macroeconomic environment. This vision is required because we want to reach to the level of $26 trillion size. Today we are hardly $3 trillion plus. From $3 trillion to $26 trillion, if we really want to reach in 25 years, then obviously the macroeconomic environment has to be very, very strong. We cannot afford to have the macroeconomic instability in the country, because that will push back the country in terms of the growth process. That's why three strong visions are made in this budget. And to attain this, in these visions, the government has identified, or budget has identified, the four transformative opportunities. Four transformative opportunities. They identified the four areas where the opportunities are plenty, but we need to exploit them on priority. Plenty opportunities are available, but issue is their exploitation, their use, and therefore they identified four areas where the priority need to be given in the current year budget for maximizing the potential of these groups. And the first he said economic empowerment of women through the self-help groups. This is a very, very important phenomenon. Economic empowerment of women through self-help groups. Self-help groups. And I just have to explain to you briefly. In one of the schemes of the government, that is the National Rural Livelihood Mission, Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, that is National Rural Livelihood Mission, is implemented by the government since 2010-11. All schemes relating to rural sector leading to the employment or income generation were merged, and NRLM was created. Under NRLM, the objective was to empower the people, particularly women, by making these self-help groups. These self-help groups will be made, and the self-help groups will be assisted in the form of the credit, in the form of the market, etc., so that they can use their potential. And rise up. This was the objective of NRLM. Under NRLM, the around 81 lakh self-help groups has already been created under the NRLM. These 81 lakh self-help groups need to be empowered, and these the groups which are owned by the women. These are the women specific self-help groups, and therefore 81 lakh women self-help groups need to be empowered more. Groups are there. Now they have to be provided all kinds of possible help. If they need finance, they will be given the concessional credit. If they need critical inputs, they will be assisted in giving the critical inputs. If they need marketing, they will be assisted in providing the market of their product. But these 21 lakh self-help groups have to be empowered. If these are empowered, then obviously if you multiplied even on average 5 member in a group, then 40 crore, the 81 into 4 is equal to, that will be 4 crore women will be empowered automatically, and that's why this first transformative opportunity is to use the potential already created in the form of self-help groups. The potential is there. Only thing is this potential need to be utilized. To utilize them more optimally, more efficiently, we have to provide them the adequate opportunities. Whatever they require, we have to provide them so that their potential can be utilized. The second opportunity, they said that we have a huge bundle of a huge population of artisans and the craftsmen. Artisans and craftsmen is our strength. You see that prior to when the Britishers came here, the Indians artisans and India's handicrafts were very popular all over the world, and we have been sending the artisans products or handicrafts all over the world, and even in the Europe they were liked the most. They were considered to be very luxurious goods by them. But after the Britishers came here, and because of their exploitative policies, because of their discriminating economic policies, the artisans and handicrafts were essentially declined. And therefore, under this transformative opportunities, we want to revive these artisans and the handicrafts, which we call Vishwakarma. That's why the Pradhan Mantri Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman scheme is going to be launched, under which these artisans and handicrafts will be promoted, and all kinds of help, as I said, will be given to them to improve their quality, to improve their scale, and improve their market, and integrating them with the MSME. They should be made a part of the supply chain so that they can keep supplying their product over a period of time. Therefore, this is the third transformative opportunities which are highlighted in the budget, which can be exploited. The third is the tourism promotion in the mission mode. India has a huge potential of tourism, but that is not exploited so far. And therefore, the third transformative opportunities highlighted here is the promotion of tourism. And we have to identify certain tourist destinations, and these destinations to be used for attracting both the internal and external tourists. And we have a huge potential. This potential need to be exploited, and therefore the various programs and the schemes will be launched to promote the tourist destinations in India. It will not only lead to earning of the foreign exchange, it will also generate huge employment opportunities for the youth in the tourism sector. Hello. Now, to achieve the vision set by the government for the Amrit Kaal, the 7 priorities are identified in the budget. And these 7 priorities, I hope, will continue in the subsequent budget also. And you see that in all these 7 priorities, the government has taken the care of the concept of sustainable development. We have already adopted as a part of our agenda for development. You see that the 7 priorities are the inclusive development, reaching the last mile, youth power. We have to exploit the youth power we have. We have to develop the infrastructure and investment so that no constraint, because of the infrastructure constraint, nothing is stopped for growing. and then unleashing the potential. Here again I am highlighting this fact, everyone has to unleash the potential he or she has. And therefore, for unleashing the potential, you have to be given the opportunity. If the opportunity given to you in the area of your specialization or the skill you have, then obviously you will be able to use your skill to the maximum extent possible in that area to unleash the potential. And therefore, the green growth, as I said, is the priority of the government and financial sector, because everything requires the finance. Therefore, financial sector has to be developed or to be reoriented as we move along the development process. Therefore, we should not lag behind in the development process on account of the shortage of infrastructure or on account of the fact that the finance sector is lagging behind. Therefore, the financial sector has to move along to meet all these priorities. And you see this in this priority, the first, inclusive development, and reaching the last mile. Both are focusing on inclusive growth. And the green growth is focusing on the environment compatibility. Therefore, the concept of sustainable development we adopted is actually complied with in this budget. We are focusing inclusive growth, we are focusing on the green growth. And along with this, we want to develop the infrastructure, we want to create the situation, we want to create the favorable environment so that every individual is able to use his potential, that is in the form of skills, to the maximum extent possible. And in this, focus will be given to youth. Youth is our strength. As you know that we are at the disadvantaged position today in the form of demographic dividend. We are the one of the luckiest country in the world where the youth is the maximum. In the age group of the youth, say 15 to 35, we have a 62% of the population. And this is our strength. This is our strength. And if we can utilize this youth, we can definitely reach or attain most of our targets over a period of time. Most of the targets can be attained if we can use the youth power. If we can use the youth power. And that's why the focus is on the youth. And in this budget, the kind of situation we have presented before you is the priorities of the government. What government is trying to do in this area, that we briefly mention. For example, for attaining the inclusive growth, what we have already doing, what already we are doing or we have done is summarized in this slide. For example, the under PM Kisan, we have already transferred 2.2 lakh crores to our 11 crore farmers under the PM Kisan. 9 crore water connections have already been given in the rural houses. 11.7 crore household toilet constructions have been made under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Then 9.6 crore LPG connections have already given under Ujjwala. 220 crore COVID vaccinations has been done, which is a achievement and recognized by the WHO also, achievement of the Government of India. The 47.8 crore PM Jan Dhan accounts have been already opened, and 44.6 crore persons were insured under various insurance schemes announced by the government. Already we have done for the inclusiveness of the growth process. But over and above this growth process, the still government want to do the certain new initiatives to further strengthen the inclusiveness in our growth process. And therefore, agriculture and cooperation, agriculture is considered to be the area where still the 44-45% of the working population is engaged, and therefore the government has announced certain programs for further improvement in the agriculture. If it improves, then obviously inclusiveness will further rise. For example, the digital public infrastructure is to be created for agriculture, meaning thereby that various information, critical information to the farmers in the form of use of the seed, in the form of rainfall, in the form of quality of the soil, etc. The critical information to be provided to the farmers through the digital infrastructure. It means a app will be created through which farmers can get all the possible information they require in the agriculture through this app. The Agricultural Acceleration Fund is proposed to be created, which will provide certain incentives to new startups which will be coming in the agriculture sector. Incentives will be provided out of this fund for the new startups which are coming in the agriculture sector. Then obviously horticulture. Horticulture is an important sector, and to attain the self-reliance in the horticulture, we have to boost the quality planting, we have to address the diseases which normally crop catches, and therefore the government has allocated 2,200 crores for the Atmanirbhar Horticulture Clean Plant Program. Because unless this is one of the area, if farmers move from going the traditional crops like wheat and rice to horticulture, their annual income will definitely rise. This is already proven fact, and therefore government want to maintain this. Then the Shri Anna, because 2023 is the year announced for the year of the millets. Millets is the coarse grain, and therefore in this year various programs will be launched for promotion of the coarse grain. India is one of the countries which produces the largest quantum of coarse grains. We are not only producing millets, we are producing the various other coarse grains in various parts of the country: jawar, ragi, bajra, kuttu, ramdam, kangli, kutki, kodo. In various names we call them in various parts of the country. These are the coarse grains. Therefore, these have to be promoted in this, and all this coarse grain group is termed as Shri Anna. The Shri Anna group is to be promoted during the year, and to improve the quality of the millet production. The Indian Institute of Millet Research, Hyderabad, is to be made Center of Excellence. Center of Excellence allocation is provided for this institute. The agriculture credit, because credit is an important issue relating to agriculture, to bring more and more farmers into the formal credit framework. The government has decided to increase the credit diversion to agriculture by 20 lakh crores more. Whatever credit is being given to agriculture, over and above that, the increase will be made by 20 lakh crore. 20 lakh crore more funds will be diverted towards the agriculture. And under the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada scheme, a sub-scheme will be launched with the allocation of 6,000 crore to further provide the support to the fishermen, fish vendors, and the other micro and small enterprises. The cooperation will be developed, as we know that we have already set up a separate ministry for the cooperation, and this ministry is already taking a lot of measures for promotion of cooperation in agriculture as well as non-agriculture areas. Now, in terms of in the health, the government has decided to promote the research and development in the health sector, and also to provide improve the supply of the paramilitary, para health worker like nurses, and government has decided to set up the new nursing colleges along with the medical colleges so that the supply of nurses can be increased. Similarly, to improve the quality of the teachers' education, the diets which were created at the time of Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan need to be revived, and therefore the diet institutions to be revived to improve the quality of education under the education sector. Therefore, the government has decided to improve the quality and the workers, skilled workers, both in the health and education sector, because these two sectors are basically the sector which are governed by the workers. If we have a shortage of teachers, education system will not perform well. If you have shortage of health workers, the health sectors will cripple. That's why the government has decided to promote both these category of workers with the improved quality. That is the focus area of the budget in health and education sector. Reaching the last mile means the government want to reach the last mile person living in the country which has not so far has received the benefits of the growth, and therefore they are called the particularly the vulnerable tribal groups which are living in the inaccessible areas, and therefore the Pradhan Mantri particularly vulnerable tribal groups development mission will be set up. Under this mission, the areas will be identified where these people are living which have not been received the benefits of the growth so far, and they will be given the priority and the benefits of the growth will be taken towards them. And similarly, in the tribal areas, the government has decided to improve the quality of teachers and decided to recruit around 15,000 teachers in the 750 Eklavya model schools which are set up in the tribal areas. And in some of the areas, the inscriptions need to be digitized. Inscriptions are available in the tribal areas, which are basically the cultural property of this country, and therefore they have to be digitized over a period of time under this scheme. So therefore, the next priority of the government is essentially the infrastructure investment. As I said that when we discussed the economic survey briefly, we saw that economic survey highlighted that government should continue to make huge expenditure in the form of capital expenditure in infrastructure sector, so that the momentum of the demand can be maintained, and in corresponding to that, the growth momentum can be maintained. That's why the capital expenditure is very, very important. As I said that the government has decided to raise the capital expenditure from 7.5 lakh crores last year to 10 lakh crore this year. And out of this 10 lakh crores, 25% will be diverted towards railways. 2.4 lakh crores will be diverted towards railways, particularly to complete the pending projects so that the connectivity can be improved. But if you look at the actual expenditure the government is going to promote is much more than the 10 lakh crores. Government is also giving 50 years the interest-free loan to the states to push up the capital expenditure by the state governments also. The government is also trying to find out the grants given by the center to the states, how much that grant is used for creation of the capital assets. And if we add all these together, we find that the government is going to spend the 4.5% of GDP in the form of capital expenditure this year. If you only take into account the Government of India expenditure 10 lakh crores, then the capital formation expenditure or capital expenditure will be 3.3% of GDP. But if we take into account all the other components, it rises to the 4.5%. It is ever highest in the history of India as far as the capital expenditure is concerned. And making this capital expenditure means that we have to improve our connectivity. If connectivity is improved, we shall be able to bring down our logistic cost. And if logistic cost it brings down as targeted by the government, then obviously the competitiveness of our exports will improve and our exports may compete in the rest of the world. Today, the disadvantage of our export is that they are not able to compete because of the high logistic costs in India. And that high logistic cost is because of the lack of connectivity. That's why the government, by making the huge expenditure in the connectivity sector, is trying to reduce the logistic cost. This is the priority area of the government. This is the priority area of the government. Similarly, on the pattern of the RIDF, that is Rural Infrastructure Development Fund, the government is proposed to create Urban Infrastructure Development Fund. Urban Infrastructure Development Fund. And the money from UIDF will be used to improve the facilities in the towns, tier 2 or tier 3 towns areas. Tier 2 town or tier 2 or tier 3 towns areas, the money will be used to improve this. And states will be encouraged to leverage resources from the grants of 15th Finance Commission to adopt the appropriate user charges while accessing the UIDF. We'll be giving the assistance to the states from UIDF only when they release some resources for these towns with appropriate user charges. And the 10,000 crores is earmarked under the UIDF. Urban sanitation is obviously an important area, and therefore to improve the sanitation, the mechanical desulging of septic tanks and sewers to be done instead of using the human beings, because a lot of casualties has happened when the person enter into the main holes to clear the septic tanks. Now, priority 4 is unleashing the potential. As I said that this is the basic objective of the Amrit Kal. This is the basic objective of the Amrit Kal. We have to create the situation in such a way that all the persons are able to use their potential to the maximum extent possible. And that's why the measures here is abhi tak we were calling Make in India program. Now government has announced that the Make Artificial Intelligence in India program. It means we are focusing on this artificial intelligence or other such technologies, and 3 centers will be created in various institutions to promote the artificial intelligence across the country. National data governance policy will be introduced because as we have seen that one of the problem in international flow of capital is the data. So therefore the national data governance policy will have to be introduced. The famous slogan of the Prime Minister, Vivad se Vishwas, is the area. And therefore in various industrial sectors where we shall move from Vivad to Vishwas, means where we can solve the problem by having the trust with each other, we should solve it rather than going for a dispute. For example, in pandemic period, those MSMEs who are not able to meet the target given to them, then the government has given the opportunity to solve this dispute through discussion. Rather than solving the dispute through legal channel, it will take time. or it is irreversible. But if we can go along with the trust with each other, we can settle somewhere in between and can solve the problem. Similarly, the phase 3 of e-courts will be launched so that the faster delivery of judgments can be made. The entity digital lockers to be set up for use by the business enterprises and the charitable trust. Setting up of 100 labs for 5G services based application development, because 5G is already being launched and therefore it is to be used to its the technological potential, and therefore to develop the applications based on the 5G, the centers are to be set up, and therefore these are certain areas where the government is going to develop the system of unleashing the potential of the people. Therefore, the next important area is obviously the green growth. Green growth is the priority number 5 of the government, and under green growth, the various steps government has planned to create during the first budget of the Amrit Kaul. The first is obviously the lifestyle for environment to be adopted. Here the awareness generation to be done so that every person adopt the lifestyle which is in consonance with the environment, and therefore all the persons will be motivated, awareness generation will be done so that the lifestyle is compatible with the environment. And as I have said that India has already made a commitment in net zero carbon emission by 2070. Net zero carbon emission by 2070. Of course, a lot of efforts have to be made in this area for transition from the carbon or fuel-based energy to renewable sources based energy. But apart from that, we have to change our culture, we have to change our habits and make our lifestyle, make our consumption pattern which is compatible with the environment. Both have to go together. Both have to work together. Our lifestyle has to be changed, and the government's efforts will also have to be changed for transition from the fossil fuel based energy toward the renewable resources based energy. And in this direction, the government has set up the National Green Hydrogen Mission, and this mission will find out the possibilities where the hydrogen can be used as a fuel in various activities. And therefore, we have set a target to produce 5 MMT hydrogen by 2030. Mission will explore the various possibilities of raising the hydrogen production in the country. And we have budget has already allocated 19,700 crores for the mission to do this job. The budget provides 35,000 crore for the priority capital investment towards energy transition. As I mentioned that the energy transition is must for the green growth. We have to move from the use of petroleum, diesel, CNG, LPG towards the energy which is generated by renewable sources, that is the solar, the wind and the biomass and the hydro. These are the 4 sources we have, renewable sources of energy. The energy generated through these sources need to be utilized and replaced by the energy which is generated through fossil fuel based sources, that is the coal, that is the petroleum, diesel and gas. These has to be replaced over a period of time only then we shall be able to prove, or by 2070 we shall be able to reduce our net carbon emission intensity to zero. Otherwise, it will not be possible. And that's why the government has started making it a very, very important program under the first budget of the Amrit Kal. And therefore, focus area is the green growth. Apart from that, we are green credit program government has launched, under which the priority will be given to those areas which are making the schemes and programs and processes which are environmentally friendly, and we are providing incentives to them in prioritizing our credit to them, to such entities who are working in these areas, and therefore the green credit program is to be framed by the government and guidelines to be laid down to implement this program. The PM Pranam is basically the mission or the program through which we can also improve the climate across the coastal areas. And therefore, the PM program for restoration, awareness, nourishment and amelioration of Mother Earth will be launched to incentivize states and union territories to promote alternative fertilizers and balanced use of chemical fertilizers. This is already we have a separate program in the agriculture, that is the organic farming. In the organic farming, we are already promoting the farmers to move away from use of chemical fertilizers and use to the biofertilizers. Here again, under this program, we are providing the incentive scheme. Government will launch an incentive scheme to the states to motivate the farmers under their jurisdiction to move from the use of chemical fertilizers to the biofertilizers. Similarly, this is the Govardhan scheme, which is galvanizing the organic bio-agri resources done. Because lot of agri waste is generated. In agriculture, particularly in agriculture or in the urban areas also. Therefore, the agri waste can be used for creating the biogas program, and can be created the energy waste to energy program. Therefore, to promote this, government is planning to set up 500 new waste to wealth plants under this scheme. Waste to wealth means this agri waste to be used and to be processed to generate the energy. Because this is agri waste, this is bio waste, and therefore energy can be generated. Already we have a plan under Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, under which the waste plants have been incentivized to set up for generating the energy from the bio waste. But here government is again emphasizing this under the new scheme, galvanizing organic bioagro resources done, under which the 500 plants are to be set up. These are new plants. This will include 200 the compressed biogas plants will be set up in the rural areas, and 300 community or cluster based plants will be set up. Therefore, the 200 compressed biogas plants, including 75 in the urban areas and 125 in the rural areas, and 300 community based plants will be set up with an allocation of 10,000 crores. This is also one of the steps towards a transition from the fossil fuel based sources to the bio energy. This is called bioenergy. Similarly, the government is also trying to initiate a new program that is called Mishti program, under which the mangrove initiative for shoreline habitats and tangible incomes. It means in the coastal areas, in the coastal areas of salt plant lands, if they cannot be used for any other purpose, the mangrove cultivation to be promoted wherever possible through the convergence between the Manrega and Campa funds and other sources, which will help in protecting our environment. These are the certain programs which are highlighted by the government under this. The Amrit Dharohar. Amrit Dharohar is, there are certain wetlands in the country which are recognized as a international heritage, and already we have around 39 international heritage wetlands, and therefore they have to be maintained. Now this has to be increased to 75. This has to be increased to 75. It means these wetlands to be identified and to be used as a Ramsar Dharohar. Ramsar is a treaty. Ramsar treaty has been signed by all the countries where the wetlands, once recognized internationally and declared as an international heritage, they have to be maintained. And this Amrit Dharohar program is to identify such wetlands, and if they are recognized internationally, they will have to be maintained. And this is basically to encourage optimal use of wetlands and enhance the biodiversity or reduce the carbon emissions. Therefore, all these programs are essentially designed or going to be designed by the country, by the government to reduce the carbon emissions. To reduce the carbon emissions, because our target is to reduce the carbon intensity to 0 by 2070, and therefore the efforts have to be made right from the now. And therefore, in the first budget of the Amrit Kal, we have laid down certain programs, and hopefully in the next budget also the government will make a lot of efforts for promoting the green growth. As I said that for replacing the old vehicle, government has already issued the guidelines, and therefore government is also giving a lot of promotion under FAME scheme for transition of the vehicles from petrol or diesel or CNG used to the EV, electrical vehicles used. And therefore various incentives has already been given by the government. Here the youth, as I said that youth is the focus area, because youth is our strength. As I have been repeatedly saying that we have a demographic advantage at our disposal today, and if we fail to utilize this advantage, then we will fail to maximize our growth. It has been estimated that if the demographic advantage is utilized optimally, the GDP will automatically rise without any change by 1.5 percentage point. But the issue is in the country today, youth power is not being fully utilized. If you look at the unemployment data, we find that the highest rate of unemployment is among those who are youngest. 15 to 29, unemployment rate is quite high. And if you are educated, unemployment rate is still very high. Therefore, unless we made certain programs, effective programs to utilize our youth power, we will not be able to utilize or exploit the demographic dividend available with us. And this demographic dividend is not available to us forever. It is also going to end by maximum 2050. Some estimates are saying 2055. But obviously in the next 30 years, we are not going to have this dividend with us. And in the next 30 years, we should utilize this youth power. India is the only country today where the rate of growth of labor supply is positive. Otherwise, in most of the other countries, rate of growth of labor supply is negative. We are having such a huge labor, manpower, which can be supplied to the rest of the world. Only problem is of the skill. Skill is the lacking. Our skilled population is very, very few. If you go by statistics, not more than 10% of the working population can be considered to be skilled. And therefore, 90% of the working population is either semi-skilled or unskilled. And that's why this is one of the focus area of the Amrit Kaal, that youth has to give their next 25 years to the country. But they can give next 25 years to the country only when they are adequately skilled. And they are adequately skilled. And that's why already we have a Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, but under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, we are giving the skill of semi-skilled type. We are not giving a very advanced kind of skills training under PMKVY. That's why in this program, we are trying to launch PMKVY 4.0, because Industrial Revolution 4.0 has already been started. And this Industrial Revolution of 4.0 is essentially knowledge-based, knowledge and technology-based revolution. Knowledge and technology-based revolution. If we really want to exploit this Industrial Revolution, which is being already on the table, then our youth has to be fully equipped. Youth have to be fully skilled to exploit these opportunities which are being generated or which will be generated once the Industrial Revolution 4.0 is being implemented. That's why under this budget, the focus is on PMKVY 4.0. It means we have to give training in the courses like AI, robotics, 3D printing, big data, etc., etc. These are the areas which are the technology and knowledge based. As I said, Industrial Revolution 4 is going to be knowledge and technology based, and therefore it will generate the demand for workers, but the workers they require is highly skilled. Highly skilled workers are required in this kind of industrial revolution. And therefore, we have to commensurately make our youth to be skilled in these areas. That's why the PMKVY 4.0 is there. But since all cannot be trained in these areas, and therefore for others to be utilized with their potential, the tourism to be the priority area. If tourism is developed, the tourist destinations have been identified, they are developed as tourist places, then most of the youth power who are semi-skilled or unskilled can be absorbed here also, And therefore, the issue here is the absorption of the youth power. And as I said that most of the absorption will have to be done in the modern sector, which is characterized by the knowledge-based and technology-based sectors. And corresponding to that, our youth has to display the skill which is required in the market. So therefore, unemployment which we are seeing among the youth today is largely because of mismatch between the skill required by the market and the skill possessed by them. And the second kind of mismatch is the skill need to be possessed by them commensurate to the degree they are holding. So in most of the cases, it is observed that the skill they possess do not match with the degree they are holding. And that's why all these kind of mismatches have to be removed, and for that all possible ways and means have to be find out to meet this Amrit PD, youth power. This is very, very important area. Again, the states will have to be encouraged to set up the unity malls. Here the issue is that every state has one kind of specialization or the other. We have a diversity in unity in diversity, and therefore the diversification in our culture, in the geography, and is our strength, and therefore each state has some specificity in terms of the products. And therefore, every state will be encouraged to set up a unity mall under which all kinds of specific products which are specific to the particular state will be showcased in the unity malls, so that when the tourist comes and they visit the unity mall, they will be able to find out the kind of products available in that particular state. And therefore, the seventh is priority sector is the financial sector. It means the financial sector, as I said, has to be improved to meet all the requirements to be generated by the programs which government is going to create. This is the sector where constantly reforms have to be made. Constantly reforms have to be made. And in this case, the example is given by the GIFT IFSC is already created. The GIFT IFSC is already created, and under GIFT IFSC, a lot of facilities in the financial sector are available at one place, which can be exploited by the various sectors. And therefore, the constant innovations have to be made in the financial sector. In the financial sector, it is required. Now, given these seven priorities, the issue is that what we are going to have. So, if these seven priorities are to be absorbed in the budget is trying to be accommodative in nature. It means adequate allocations have to be made in the budget to meet all these requirements. As I said that to create all these requirements to be made, the fiscal consolidation process has to be followed. In the current year, the fiscal deficit target has been marginally reduced from the 6.4 to 5.9%. Marginally, last year it was 6.4%, both at BE level and RE level. Now it is supposed to be 5.9%. But government has laid down the fiscal consolidation path under which it is going to be 4.5% by 25-26. By 25-26. It is another question why we are not able to maintain the fiscal deficit target as prescribed by the FRBM Act, that is 3% of the GDP. That is a separate question, and that will be discussed separately under different chapter. But this is the fiscal consolidation we are going to attain through the budget process. That is 5.9% we are targeting for 23-24, and by the medium term target is set 4.5%, but it is still very high vis-a-vis the target set by the FRBM Act in India. And this is a summary where rupee comes from. 34% rupee will be coming from the borrowings, and income tax 15%, union excise 7%, corporation tax 15%, GST 17%. Non-tax receipt only 6%, non-debt capital receipt 2%, customs 4%. It means 66% of the rupee which will be spent by the government generated through own sources, and 34% rupee which is going to be spent by the government will have to be borrowed from the market. Similarly, if you look at the expenditure side of the government, the 20% of the total revenue of the government will be spent in interest payment obligations. Interest payment obligations. And interest payment obligations is going to rise further when the fiscal deficit is maintained at 5.9% or 4.5%. So interest payment 20%, pension 4%, the other expenditure 8%, and the state share of taxes and duties 18%. Finance commission is 9%. Therefore, the 9%, these are the committed expenditure of the government. These are committed expenditure of the government. Centrally sponsored schemes is also committed expenditure of the government. Subsidies are committed expenditure of the government, and the defense is already our commitment, and central sector schemes 17%. Therefore, the government has no leverage, no freedom, no flexibility at their disposal for spending the rupee. And if we really want to divert or make some priority, then you have to reduce the expenditure from somewhere. In this budget, as I said, the government priority is capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is going to be increased by 37% overall in this budget. But to keep the capital expenditure at the high level, the revenue expenditure is not allowed to increase by the government, and which is capped only 1% increase. The 1% increase in revenue expenditure is maintained, which seems difficult to maintain, because in most of the cases the government expenditure is committed, and that is the revenue expenditure. If government is able to maintain only 1% increase in the revenue expenditure, then fiscal deficit can be maintained at the end of the financial year. If government is not able to maintain the capital expenditure or revenue expenditure at 1%, then it is difficult for the government to maintain the fiscal deficit at 5.9% or to attain the medium term target of 4.5%. So therefore, these figures you have to keep in mind while preparing for prelim services. Of course, I am not given the full analysis of the budget, because that is required for mains examination. The critical appraisal, where the government, where the budget is missing many things, where the government should have given the more focus, or what are the likely outcome of this kind of budget which is going to be presented. These are the questions which are more relevant for the mains. Here we are trying to give you the information only for the prelim, so that you can look at these budgets or information for prelims point of view, because in prelim you have a lot of alternatives are there, but these are the certain priorities and components of the budget which you need to keep in view while preparing for your prelims. Thank you very much. Thank you.